All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call our council meeting to order tonight. And first we have our invocation, Councilman Villarreal.
Dear Lord, be with all of us as we try to make the best decisions possible for this beautiful city that we're in. Be with all of our families that are with us and not with us any longer. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. Janice, please let it be known that all council members are here with the exception of Michael Howe. For presentations, we have Brian. Are you with Armstrong, Vaughn and Associates, or annual financial audit report?
Beginning with the end in mind, I was thinking we could, thank you.
Welcome.
I was thinking we could start towards the end, page 61. I'm not going to go through every page, don't. Page 61 is sort of an income statement for the sewer operation for the city. And the bolded information, the middle column of the number of columns, the column numbers there to the left is the fiscal year 2018 activity. And what you'll notice is there are charges for services there of $130,190 in 2018. That's up about $6,000 from 2017. And then the wastewater treatment fees, the next group of expenses that SAWS charges the city for delivering the wastewater, is $124,230 for 2018, so that's up about $10,000 from last year. I did go look back, and it appears it's been a couple of years since the previous ordinance that set the sewer rates for the city, so it may be time within the next 6 to 12 months to look at recycling. I believe that's correct, Janice. The last time there was a sewer rate adjustment, the ordinance, I believe it was 17,945. It was a couple of years ago, so it may be time to look into that. So moving forward to page 56 and 57, this is a view of the number of governmental funds that are available to the city, and just focusing your attention on the column on page 57. The second column from the right, it's the Capital Projects Fund. There is approximately $492,000 of cash in the Capital Projects Fund available. So there's funding available there for capital needs, certainly for for the foreseeable future. No need to take on new leases unless it's a very large piece of equipment, or there's some other good business reason. Page 55. I would like to just very quickly look at that page. That is the Economic Development Corporation for the city. And you'll notice in the 2018 column, just the very bottom line, there is a fund balance of a little over $500,000 in there. And I know the city is in the process, or the corporation is in the process of using some of those funds. There were some resolutions passed towards the end of the year, and it looks like there are going to be some good investments of that funding in the near future. I'd like to spend a little bit of time on page 45. Page 45 is a look of the city's general fund versus the budget, the actual operating results. And maybe looking at the far right column, which is the variance of actual to budget, with the a number in brackets, the negative numbers being unfavorable and the positive numbers being favorable. You'll notice the sales tax is about the third line down. We're $155,000 ahead of budget, so that was a conservatively budgeted. The interest income, about 3 or 4 lines down from that, was $53,000 ahead of budget, and that's because in the past several years, interest has not amounted to much for the city, so that was rightfully not budgeted, but it was $53,000 in fiscal year 2018. Then in the miscellaneous line, you'll notice the miscellaneous revenue, $51,519 ahead of budget. And that is due primarily to the continued ramp up of the Voight Center. A lot of that, about $37,000 of that is rent of the facility, and then another $58,000 is the swimming pool fees. Then moving down to the expenditures section, the large favorable variance in the expenditures was the capital outlay. You'll see $216,000 there. There were just some, I believe, some vehicle purchases that might have been pushed back a year. And there was also some capitalization in that line, so it moved during the budget process. Of course, everything's done on a cash basis, but at the end of the day, the accounting, we moved the capitalized items out of there. So there was a new patrol car purchased for $36,000, including the accessories. There was, I believe, a new server purchased for the police department, about $24,000. And then there was I believe the police department also got a new heater or an HVAC system for $15,000. So what you'll see towards the very bottom of this page is a favorable variance of $817,000 against budget. So again, the city does an excellent job of budgeting very conservatively. Moving over to pages 17 and 18, I just wanted to look at the proprietary, the sewer operation again. It's page 17 and 18. On the left-hand side, page 17 is the kind of the balance sheet, and the right-hand side is the income statement. So as we discussed before, on the right-hand side, you'll see wastewater treatment fees of $124,000, $124,231. That's approximately $10,000 a month. Okay. So if you look at the total unrestricted fund balance on the left-hand side, which is the balance sheet look, that's well over a year's worth of expenses and fund balance is available. So should something untoward happen to the sewer system and some investment needs to be made. Okay, just a couple more real quick on page 15. This is a look of this is again the income statement. This is the governmental funds of the city. So kind of a collapsed view of what we looked at a couple of minutes ago. And I'd like to draw your attention again to the far left column of numbers, which is the general fund, and this is on page 15. And about 2/3 of the way down the page, there's a section called expenditures. The total expenditures for the year were $3.6 million. So again, you're talking about $300,000 a month of expenses just on average. Turning over to page 13, 2 pages previous to that, this is the balance sheet then for the governmental funds. And what you'll see again in the general fund column towards the bottom, the unassigned fund balance, $3,337,549. If you take that and divide it by $300,000 per month, you have about 11 months of expenses and fund balance. And this is a very desirable position for a city to be in, because we usually recommend, and we usually don't see much more than about 3 to 6 months of expenses and fund balance. So the city's in a very good position financially. Are there any questions?
So from your point of view, how's the city sitting? 8, for a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being best.
With our clients, it's, I would say, probably 1.5.
Okay.
Yes. The city's in very good shape financially.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about the sewer fund, but I'm not sure if it should be directed to you or not.
I'll try.
How do we pay for that? We pass that on to, most of us don't have sewer.
Right.
So
I think
is it passed on to the gardens and the businesses?
I think Jeff, I don't know if you might be able to add.
SAWS bills. Yeah.
And they send us a check each month. And so it's a bill each month, they send us a check each month. But I think the rates are set by council, okay? So they bill out whatever rate
But is it, who,
That's yeah, that's the operations. You're right. Most of the city, I believe, is on septic. But I think the gardens, that's a big source. And the businesses, I off the top of my head, I can't
I just didn't
remember.
know if we're all paying for that or if it's,
Oh, no,
to
no. It's just it's
people who
only,
use
it's
it.
only people that use the system that are being charged for the services. Yes, that's correct.
okay.
I have no other questions. Do you guys? Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks for
again.
the good news.
Well,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
for letting us serve the city in this town. Sorry, in this fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Johnny, would you like to give us a report on the fire department, please?
Yes, sir. For the month of February, the fire department had 41 calls for service. Of those, 22 were EMS, 15 were fire alarm, 3 motor vehicle collisions, and 1 odor of smoke. That brings us to 105 calls for the year. And we conducted 12 commercial fire inspections, and no violations were found last month. Acadian had 22 calls, and their average response time was 7 minutes and 11 seconds.
That's about the average, isn't it?
Yeah, their goal is 12 minutes, and if they're here by then, that's great. And it really depends on time of day. If it's rush hour traffic, it's going to be a little longer. So, yeah, 7 minutes is good for EMS. Any other questions?
No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shad, our police chief, Shad Pritchard, the floor is yours.
All right, no napping. Fire chief. Okay, I'm going to hit February stats really quick because we have our annual report we're going to do tonight. So our February stats, we had 201 calls for service this past month, 421 for the month. We had 234 citations issued, 36 warnings. We had 1 assault and 11 narcotics violations and 3 thefts. So overall, if you're in single digits on assaults and burglaries and so forth, you're doing really, really well. So those are great stats to have. Okay, so I'm going to present the 2018 annual report. The council should have a copy of this. If you'd like a copy, I did bring some extras. They're on the table in the back. If there's not any back there and you wanted a copy, feel free to email us or stop by and we'll be happy to get you one. I'm also going to post this online on the city webpage. And I apologize, you're not going to be able to see some of these pages, but I'll hit the high notes for you. And please, council, if you have any questions, let me know. So I'm pleased to announce we're doing our annual report for the year 2018. This is my 6th year as your chief. Ouija, can you believe it's been 6 years already? 6 years as your chief. This year we've had a surge in credit card skimmers and identity theft cases. Of course, we're trying to stay on top of legislation that's being proposed at the Capitol when it comes to credit card skimmers and a couple other bills. We like to see those laws get a lot tougher because it's really and truly, if you just do a Google search for San Antonio credit card skimmers, it'll surprise you how many they find every month. It's 80 to 100 a month across San Antonio, so it's certainly an epidemic. It's a real problem right now. This is our organizational chart. This is basically how your police department is staffed. When we're full, we currently are testing for a full-time position right now. When we are full, you have 14 full-time officers, 3 part-time, and 6 reserves, and we have a budget of $1.3 million. Our calls for service. This past year, we had 4,058 calls for service, and this just kind of breaks it down to show you where we're spending most of our time. We did have 47 accidents this past year, 100 assist other agencies, 70 narcotics, 101 animal calls, 175 EMS calls.
Shad, is
Yes,
it
sir.
possible to zoom in on that graphic at all?
No, sir, I can't.
Okay.
It's just the way it displays up here.
Gotcha.
I always like to talk about animal control. We do have 2 certified animal control officers on our staff. I'm also certified in animal control. I attended that class with Kelly this past year. And this is something that we're really proud to be in control of. I know Debbie and Tanya and the Humane Society here, we work very, very well together, very closely. We have some great success stories this past year with some animals that we had to take care of. So we don't advertise a lot of that because we don't want to become a haven or a dumping ground for animals. But when we do have to deal with them, I can tell you that the Humane Society and the PD does an excellent job of placing these animals. And really and truly, you have some excellent people that do fostering here for animals. So I tell you, if you're an animal, the place you want to get dropped off is Hollywood Park, quite honestly. Oh, I can't say that, can I? No. So this is kind of a breakdown of some of the animal calls that we do handle. Of course, the big percentage of that's barking dogs, and we know that's a nuisance issue. The good news is we did get some better code enforcement action out of barking dog calls, and we're able to do things a little bit differently now because we know that's a quality of life issue. That when you have a barking dog at night and you're trying to sleep, I know that's an issue. So we do have some better teeth, if you will, in our ordinance to deal with barking dogs. We did have 5 animal bite cases this past year. Luckily, all those worked out okay. We do have 2 full-time detectives. Between the 2 of them, they handled 246 cases this past year. And I can tell you, as a former detective myself, that's a lot. That's a lot of cases to handle. Whenever they get a criminal case, the amount of work that goes into putting that together after investigating it and getting it ready to be filed at the DA's office takes an enormous amount of time. So these 2 individuals are working very, very hard. We did have a 33% clearance rate this past year. And just so you know how that kind of falls, the FBI likes to see you at about 40% or better. If you're doing 40% or better, that means your clearance rate is extremely high based on the national average. So we're real close. We're about 33%. Of course, these guys, I mean, with that many cases, it's a pretty good accomplishment. I'm proud of them. Of those 246, 59 of those were felony, and 22 of those were juvenile cases. Now, we do participate in the DEA task force. What that means is we actually have an officer that's employed by Hollywood Park, but he's on a special assignment to the DEA as a task force officer, and he works undercover. And he had 22 cases this past year, and his seizure dollar amount on the books right now is $2.5 million. So that's how much he's collected basically in assets. That's kind of a combination of property and cash. So far, our percentages that we've received is $127,000, and we've got somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 on the books that we're just waiting to come in. So that's excellent for Hollywood Park and the police department. We're able to use that for training, for equipment, and things of that nature. Administratively, although we are not in the business to make money, some of the things we do generates revenue. One of those being citations. We did set up a overtime traffic detail this past year, and I'll show you some numbers later that'll kind of point you to understand what that means for the town. It's still our number one complaint. Anytime we get called, our number one complaint is still speeding. You know, it's a universal problem. It's hard to tackle. Everybody's in a hurry, but you're going to see that your officers, even though there's only 10 of them working the street, you're going to see some very staggering numbers. So they're working very hard for you. So the portion that Hollywood Park kept this past year, what I mean by that is after everything is said and done, the amount of money that we kept here after sending the state, which is a very large percentage, by the way. We don't keep very much money when it comes to a citation when it's broken down, but our percentage was $178,000. So that's what revenue that generated for you. From towing and storage, made just over $6,000 with 121 vehicles being towed, $1,400 in fingerprint fees. Believe it or not, golf cart permits generated $2,300. Now, when you divide that by $50 each, that's quite a few golf carts on the road this past year. I believe we had a little over 100 licensed right now in Hollywood Park, 100 golf carts, right? And then excessive alarm fees, that's something that we charge if you have to go to your house more than 3 times in a year. So total fees collected is $190,922. Some of the high points for this past year. One of the things that I'm championing as a chief of police and something that I did a couple of years ago is go to the Capitol and do a little lobbying. And the thing I'm working on this year is making mail thefts a state jail felony. Now, you've all heard of mail thefts. A lot of you in this room have probably been a victim of a mail theft of some kind. And right now, that's a federal crime. That's not a local crime. In other words, there's nothing I can really do about it. So we're trying to make that a state crime. So when we catch somebody with gobs of mail, we can prosecute them instead of give them to the federal authorities. Because what happens with the federal authorities, because that threshold is so high to get a conviction or for them to even bring charges, a lot of times they go free and it's never investigated because their resources are very limited and there's so many cases out there. So what we'd like to do is say, look, you know what, give it to me. Let me deal with it and I will handle it. So we are lobbying with a couple state reps and there has been a bill filed for this particular case. So I'm pretty excited about that. Of course, we still do our Take Back program. I really want to thank you all for participating in that. We've been the #1 collection site for the last couple of years now, and I think we're somewhere up around 4,000 pounds worth of unused medication collected, so that's an amazing thing. Now, is anybody out there on Facebook? I know there's a few of you looking around. There's probably a few of you on Facebook. I like to put this stat in there because the younger crowd will know what this means. So we're up to almost 1,200 likes on our Facebook page, which it's a big deal in the Facebook circles. If you don't know what that means, come see me after. I'll explain it to you. So we are number 6 when it comes to law enforcement pages that people click on and view and read and comment on. So of all the Facebook pages out there, we fall number 6. So I'm pretty proud of that. It takes a lot of work to keep up with all that. Okay, so some challenges for you, some of the things we're focusing on this next year. We'd really like to get our own intoxilizer machine here, so when we do get a DWI, we're not transporting that person downtown to use a breathalyzer machine. If they pass that, then we got to bring them all the way back. We'd like to have a machine here locally to do that, so we're going to work on petitioning the state to get that done, and that means other police departments in the area can come here and use that machine. So we really like to have our own machine here. I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but we're still looking at entrance cameras, something that has a license plate reader, because we have an exact number of entrance and exits in Hollywood Park. We're unique that way, and that's a great thing if you're trying to control who comes and goes, or at least know who comes and goes. So we're trying real hard to put up license plate readers at our entrances so that when a bad guy does come in, we're collecting their information so that we can track them down. So it's going to be an amazing adventure when we get down to that. And then we're also, something that's come up the last couple of years is climate control kennels, something that I'm going to speak with the EDC and the council about later, is just because bad weather days or cold days or hot days, trying to keep an animal, we have kennels, but they're all open air kennels. So we'd really like to see some climate control. I mean, we've kept animals in my office just because it was too cold. So we need to do something better. Okay. Now, last but not least, I want to show you, hopefully you can see this a little better. A lot of people ask, how are we doing? How are we doing? Yeah, there we go. Great. So here is a 5-year comparison chart that kind of shows you how you're doing with the crime here in Hollywood Park. So on this chart, you want that to be as small as possible. You want those bars to be as short as possible, okay? So we start from the left going to the right. So burglaries, we only had 5 this past year. That's amazing. That's amazing. I don't know if some of you might remember when we had these storage shed burglaries come through a couple of years ago. They hit like 20 of them. That was a big deal. So that's why those numbers were spiked so those few years. Burglary habitation, that's actually when people break into your home. We only had just a few last year. That's amazing. That's a great, great number to have. Vehicle burglaries still tend to be high, but a lot of these and most of these are happening in our business district, and some of them are happening in our neighborhood, but most of that's in our business district. And then thefts, that's the same, that kind of goes hand in hand. So we'd like to see those numbers get a little bit lower, but still, if you were to look at I'm just going to, as an example, San Antonio crime map of just the Stone Oak area, it's triple digit for the year. So we're doing really good. So here's your traffic enforcement. We're talking about speeding. So you want these, if they're low, that means we have compliance. If they're high, that means we're still trying to get people to comply. So you can see for the last 5 years, it's gone up significantly, all the way up to 25, 29. So that's a lot of citations. And then our warnings, 649, that's still 649 traffic stops. Even though a citation was an issue, that's still a lot of traffic stops to tell somebody to slow down. So still really, really high. And then here's our calls for service. So we're averaging 4,077 calls a year right now for your police department. When you're talking about a 14-man crew, that's a lot. That's a lot of calls. We did go down slightly this past year, but we're still up over 4,000 for the last 4 years. I don't expect that to get much lower. I expect it to go a little bit higher as things tend to progress here, especially in our business area. So a lot of calls for our small staff. Okay, I'm done. That's it. Questions, comments, concerns?
Shad, of the thefts, property crime, of the percentage, what percentage are those are package thefts from people's doorsteps?
Believe it or not, this past year that number went significantly down. 2 years ago, it was pretty high. I think somewhere around half a dozen or so are the package thefts, but that's gone down quite a bit here now that people are more aware. And believe it or not, Nextdoor app is a wonderful tool too. People are really communicating really well in the community about things, so really proud of that.
Thank you. Thank you for that report.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When we had the joint EDC council meeting, you mentioned something about maybe doing our own tow yard or something.
Impound lot.
Impound lot.
Correct.
And you gave an astronomical number that.
Pretty high.
So
Yeah.
is that possibly doable?
Sure, and I was waiting to see what these numbers look like. How many cars did we tow for the year? So it's 121 cars, and we only made about 7,000 off of that. And I think Mayor and I talked about it, and that would have been somewhere around 200,000 would be the difference. You know, it is. It is a state-regulated activity, and it takes quite a bit of work to get there, licensing and inspections and some OSHA things. You know, it's not as simple as putting up a fence and calling it good. So there's quite a bit of work to be done there. But sure, we are moving forward with this. So we are progressing.
Possibly by May or June, we'll have a plan that we can share.
Absolutely. We can absolutely do that. I forgot one thing, Mayor, if I have one alibi, if you would allow. I added up, and this is in this packet, and I didn't put it on the slide there, but it's an extremely important number that I wanted to share with everybody since we have some folks here tonight. The total years of service, and I added all this up. I do this about every three years. Total years of law enforcement service for everybody in your police department is 244. That's a lot of experience you have here in Hollywood Park. The longest tenured officer in Hollywood Park is 42 years. That's Lieutenant Williams. He's been in law enforcement for 42 years. Yes. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh, there he is right there.
He doesn't look that old.
Ever present.
No, it's great. And then the longest Hollywood Park officer is 31.5 years still active with us. Some of you know him. That's Joe Quintero. 31.5 years. Total training hours combined, all of us combined, all the training hours, and the state keeps track of this, 40,000 hours. 40,000, that's a lot. We have 5 master peace officers. That's the highest you can get. 7 advanced and only 1 basic. So everybody is at a master and advanced license. And last but not least, we have three individuals that have college degrees, 3 instructors, code enforcement, 3 certified firearms instructors, 2 mental health officers, and 3 certified animal control officers. So extremely capable department here in Hollywood Park. So I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. All right, Kelly Cowan, Public Works Report.
Good evening, everybody. I don't have a big report like Chief does, but that was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So mine's pretty simple. At the Voight Center this month, we had 12 events. Things slowed down after Christmas, but it's starting to pick back up. You're going to see some bigger numbers come April, May, and June. Summer gets here, it really gets busy. We've got the new ceiling fans in at the Voight Center. They look great. Working on some sound system stuff. I know that's been a big frustration with a lot of people was the acoustics in there. So EDC is working with me to try to alleviate some of the acoustical problems in there. So that's a big plus, and hopefully we'll have that done before summer gets here anyway. Our code enforcement, this month we had 48 code enforcement, pretty big drop from January. The reason we had that big drop is tree season changed, so we're now in the non-tree trimming, so we don't have a lot of people putting brush out. We're not having all the tree trimmers out there, that kind of stuff. And speaking on code enforcement, Gavin actually has his test scheduled for the 1st of April. So he'll be going to get his certification since he took the class in October. The state finally got a test set, so he'll be doing that. So he should be certified next month. And then one other piece, I just talked with Bexar County Public Works, the program that they approved for us last year to put in the high water detectors in some of our low water areas. I'm meeting with them next Friday to get things scheduled on that. They should be starting on that in the next couple of weeks. So that's pretty much my report. If y'all have any questions, please ask.
None here. Thank you very much, Kelly. Jeff Henson, we have a financial report.
If you look on the first page, Council, where the summary is, the expenses are about the revenue is about 78% of the budget. That's usual for this time of year because all the property tax comes in, most of it before January 31st, but it's well within the parameters. And the expenditures are only 38% versus 41% of the budget, so that's also within the parameters. And I just want to point out a few things. If you turn to page 2, you go down by the bottom where it says Voight Center. You'll see that Voight Center is already at 60% of its budget. So as a public works director said, there's been a lot of renting and a lot of usage of the center. And I don't really think we're in the busy season yet. It'll be a lot busier this next 6 months. So Voight Center is doing really well. If you turn to page 3, I want you to look down at interest. That's the interest in the general fund. I don't know on the budget if there was a zero missed or what, but I put the interest in because last year I looked at it and it wasn't. It was low, for most of the year also, so I didn't know what it was. But this year I went back, I talked to the auditors, they had to make a big adjustment from last year. The last 3 months were done correctly with all of it in there. The earlier ones won't. So I think the interest revenue this year is going to be around $70,000, okay? Maybe higher, because interest rates have gone up, because there's a lot of cash right now in the general fund, and that property tax comes out slowly, so it'll be a lot higher interest rate this year than last year, which was 52, and it'll be a lot higher than budget is for sure. The next one is right down where it says other revenues. You'll see it's a negative $17,600. That's because I reclassified that reimbursement from Travelers Insurance for that life pack for firemen down to insurance reimbursements. If you go down further in the page under other sources, that way you know that that's what it was for, an insurance reimbursement, and it's not really just another revenue that you can expect to come in the next year. Okay. Other than that, the expenses, I'm looking at some of those. I think some of them misclassified, especially in the capital categories where they went to machinery instead of vehicles, so I'm going to go through those. But other than that, everything looks really well at this point in time. If you have any questions, because this came today because I didn't have the tools I needed, please email me. I'll answer any questions that you have, okay?
I just wanted to see if y'all noticed how high the sales tax was for this $71,000.
It was $5,000 more than last year's sales tax same time.
That's a lot.
Which is almost a 10%
It's the highest I've ever seen it.
I think the increase for the Voight Center was probably from the Northeast Independent School District.
No, I haven't
not.
billed that yet. That'll go under either there or the parks and the pool part. It'll go into the pool part, and I have that bill ready. We'll be sending to them. It's about $31,000. But this and the Voight Center is strictly rentals.
From the rentals. Wow. Thank you. That's great news. Thank you. Janice, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to let you know that the business for the month is the Rock and Fossil Depot, and they're located on 16111 San Pedro, Suite 103. They carry a mix of unusual rocks, crystals, minerals, fossils, and gemstone shapes. And so they welcome your patronage. They're our business of the month this month. I'd also like to announce to everybody that early voting begins Monday, April 22nd, and it ends Tuesday, April 30th. We will not have early voting here in Hollywood Park. I am sorry about that, but you can vote anywhere in early voting anywhere in Bexar County for your Hollywood Park election. Of course, we will have elections here on Election Day, which is May 4th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Janice. Mr. Brennan, what have you?
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know I recently sent out a message to the residents to kind of give them an update on where I saw things, and just was trying to reassess our priorities and our goals, and to try to make clearer the issue on the billboards. While we have the moratorium in place, there is no actionable item on the agenda tonight, and the only element of our executive session is a legal issue and an ordinance refining element. But the reason, as your elected volunteer resident council and me as mayor, trying to look out for the long-term financial strength of our town, if people propose things to us, we get the information and we present it, and we're looking at all kinds of ways. We've been able to follow our plan and my game plan for my term as mayor without needing to seek a tax increase or look for additional revenues, and I'm real pleased with that. And as I stated a couple months ago, having a background in the billboard business, I was going to recuse myself from any vote, even if there was a tie and a council person was absent, which is the only instance in which I do have a vote. And just wanted to try to set the record straight that we're trying to be upfront and open about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and appreciate your support. And on the news last night, there was a story about a cyber theft issue that took place here in the park, and it was true. Earlier this month, an illicit wire transfer of city funds took place, and it's now in the hands of the United States Secret Service and our local law enforcement, and our personnel and their personnel are working on it. And I'm not allowed to share details of the case because it's an ongoing investigation, but we do expect to be made whole and in the future, and I'll share details as soon as I can. And that's all I have. Would someone like to approve the minutes of our last council meeting on February 20th?
I move that we approve the consent agenda in its entirety, including the minutes and accepting the financial statements.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is that including the financial statements? All right, thank you. All right, we've got an opportunity for citizen participation, and have four people signed up. Weege Henderson, would you please state your name, your address, and share your topic with us, please? You've got 2 minutes.
I'm Weege Henderson. I live at 303 Road in Mata, and I've lived here for almost 41 years. And we are blessed to live in Hollywood Park. We have excellent police department, fire department, city employees. It is just wonderful, and we are very blessed. And one thing that concerned me also was the cyber thing. And are any of the residents? Do we have a problem with that? I
can tell you with certainty that no resident information was compromised.
Oh, okay. That was one of my big things. Another thing that concerns me is the billboards, and I don't know as much about the billboards as I should, but my suggestion would be, and I know we can't get a lot of money for
Hill Country Village. They're really burned with the way the fire department situation was handled. I have heard on good authority that we might get $30,000 a year. That's $30,000. Maybe next year we could get $60,000 if we gave them some services. We're not going to get all the services because it's my understanding that they signed a 10-year contract with with the city of San Antonio. And I'm a person that if I have a question, I want to go to the horse's mouth. I don't want to hear, well, this one said this and blah, blah. And I tried to call you, Chris, on a one-on-one because there are many things that I am concerned about. We have a situation up on Rua de Mata, I think it's in the 500 block, where there's rocks. It's been there for, ever since I can remember. And, just different things like that, what is, happening with that. And something was handed to me, which I would like to hand to you. And you, can I come up here?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Peach.
Thank you. And you might want to explain, okay? But I wanted to thank everyone, and I want to thank all you members of council who volunteer and donate their time. You all do a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Renee Perry, please.
Renee Perry, 122 Novato Boulevard. And a very short thing to say, and it's regarding the billboards, or billboard, the big one. And I look at it and I see money versus citizen safety. And that's what I see. And I am for citizen safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tim Allums.
Howdy. I'm Tim Allums. I live here at 512 Rua de Mata. I'm also a candidate for City Council Place 3 coming up. I want to speak to a little bit, and Debbie, you mentioned, we had some tremendous sales tax revenues last year, and I think there has been an opportunity that might be missed. I know that Councilman Howell had come to the HPCA meeting and had said, encouraged everybody to go home and make sure that their billing statements for all their mail order, their cell phone, things of that nature, that we're not allowing the systems that we're entering our data into to default to San Antonio, because in that instance where not all Amazon transactions have sales tax collected, but many do, like my Verizon bill, for instance, I have a pretty expensive cell phone bill. If I had allowed the system when I moved in and changed my billing address to default to San Antonio, had to change it back a couple of times, that for me, a $300 cell phone bill, that 2% that goes to the city of, or the town of Hollywood Park, is $6 a month. And I had mentioned some of this to some of my neighbors on Rua de Mata, and a lot of folks are like, gee, I never thought about that. Let me go and check this out. So I know that there's some income that we may not be getting that's rightfully ours that we need to look into. I think we should, as a town, do a lot more to raise awareness for that issue to make sure that we're not foregoing any income that should be coming to ours through that sales tax. And I also would like to speak briefly on billboards. I personally am opposed to there being any billboard erected at the intersection of Voigt and Chula Vista. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dean Perry.
Dean Perry, 122 Novato. I am opposed to what you're doing with the signs because I think you're causing a hazard, particularly on the one you're looking at now. I understand the arrangement you have actually gives them, if you pass this, it also gives them the right to other entrance areas at the same time. And I believe the same rate, which 1604 is a different ballgame. Well, further from that, I was going to mention that you're taking things off the agenda. That's fine. You're taking things in executive session. I don't think this issue belongs in there, in my experience. It's normally real estate, personnel, lawsuits, etc. When it's an issue concerning the citizens, I don't think it should be. And if I read the agenda today, I think the attorney is agreeing with me, if I read it correctly, that it shouldn't be an executive commission, this issue, and we ought to know what's going on. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you. Well, in this spirit of transparency, I'll say that only when it's a legal issue and we're advised by counsel are we encouraged to go to executive session. And is that correct, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Brennan?
Yes.
Okay. And so when we do, it's on the advice of counsel, not to keep anything from anyone. And the moratorium is in place, so nothing can take place regarding the topic anyway until after the legislative session ends at the end of May. And we're receptive to your input, and we want it. And so please realize that.
Do we have a choice? Can we say that we want to be involved? Because we're citizens of Hollywood Park.
Sure.
And we pay taxes.
Of course.
I like to know what's going on. I'd rather hear it from you all than, from the gossip mode.
Sure. I think that's always advisable. Mr. Brennan, can you shed any light on how the moratorium
There's really not
plays
much.
into
There's
this?
nothing going on right now about signs other than addressing our sign code to determine what's appropriate and legal, and does it need updating or not. That's what we're looking at. There's no discussion with sign companies at this point in time.
At all.
Mayor, if she can ask a question, can I ask one? You mentioned you had sent out a message to the homeowners of Hollywood Park. I know that one resident in the enclave got one that I'm aware of. She happened to forward it to me. I forwarded it to other people. What list are you going on to determine who receives messages from you versus who don't?
Well, that's an excellent question. Actually, I posted it on the website, and then on what was it, Janice? On Get Connected, the normal social media outlets that we utilize, and it wasn't an email blast or a direct mail or postage directed blast. And thank you for asking that.
I didn't get it either, but I looked.
Okay. I just put it in the normal social media outlets and on the website, just so you guys would be in the know.
It went through Get Connected, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the cities. If you're not on the Get Connected, then you should contact Janice and ask to be added to that email list, because that's the official one where they send out important messages. So if you're not on it, call Janice and she'll put you on it.
Just FYI, Nextdoor is not an official Hollywood Park website. That's just a community service thing. It is not official.
All right. Thank you for your comments and your concerns. Going on to old business, we have none, so we were going to go to new business. Yes.
Hello, my name is Frances Collins, 101 El Cerrito Circle.
Yes.
I just have something good to say, and I just wanted to personally thank you, Kelly, for taking care of my big problem on El Cerrito Circle, where they laid the cable, they tore up my yard, they did a lot of things. He was out there that very day, took care of it, and it was done. Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's nice to hear. Thank you very much. Thank you. regarding our first item of new business. It was to discuss take possible action for authorization to obtain treasury management services. We're awaiting a revised document from our banking partner for consideration, so I don't have anything tonight to review or to approve. Is that
Okay.
the understanding we have? Okay. And going on to item number 2, discuss take possible action on pool pricing for the 2019 swim season. Kelly?
This is not just for pricing, this is also for the scheduling. We're coming up to pool season. Last year, we pushed it right up to the middle of May before we got this done. I'm trying to be as proactive as I can so we can have our numbers together, gives Aquatica a chance to make sure they've got the appropriate number of lifeguards, and we get our schedules. So as far as I know, I think the pricing structure is still pretty fair unless y'all have something y'all want to change on that. And then on the scheduling, I worked with Aquatica. One of the biggest complaints we had this last year was we were closing the pool at 8 o'clock in the evening, and we did that so people who wanted to have pool parties could have a couple hours before the park closed. But the biggest complaint was people, when there wasn't a pool party, was losing an extra hour of swim time or a couple hours of swim time. So I talked with Aquatica about it, and they suggested that during the swim team season, Sunday through Thursday, the pool's open from 12 to 8. And then on Fridays and Saturdays during the swim team season, the pool will be open from 12 to 9. Gives an extra hour on Friday and Saturday. One of my concerns was increasing the number of lifeguard hours, which increases the cost the city has to pay for lifeguards. And I talked with Jason about it. We went over the numbers. And basically, for every extra hour that the pool is open, it costs the city $50 more just for lifeguards. So I've tried to find a balance that would work. So back to that. After the pool swim season, then we would do the Sunday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then on Friday and Saturday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's my suggestion.
What is it now? For
Right.
Saturday, Sunday through Thursday?
It was 8 to 8.
It was 8 to 8.
Okay.
Right.
And you're saying move it 9.
So I'm just saying for Fridays and Saturdays, we increase it 1 hour to give that extra hour of swim time. Friday and Saturdays, it seems to be the busiest time at the pool. So we have the most people there.
And then take an hour away in the morning?
No, I wasn't taking any time away. We were just going to increase it 2 hours. 1 hour on Friday, 1 hour on Saturday.
That's an extra $400 a month?
Yes, sir. Basically about $400 more a month.
Starting?
Starting in June.
June. Okay, all the way through what, September?
To Labor Day.
Okay. And refresh my memory, Aquatica's contract is how long is it for? Didn't we do?
It's a 3-year contract.
3 years, okay.
Y'all want a 3-year contract because they gave a price break. Last year they built the contract on 2,838 lifeguard hours. And that's what they billed out. That's what we did last year.
Okay.
At $16.50 a lifeguard hour.
Okay. So this is year 2 of that contract, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Any foreseeable equipment issues? That now that we've kind of got into it a year and a half from now?
I haven't seen any equipment issues. I am having a small issue with the splash pad. And it's weird because it's not a equipment issue. It's actually a programming issue. For some reason, I can't keep it keeps losing its programming. Every day I have to go reprogram it.
Batteries?
No.
It's the Canadians?
So I'm trying to get Zars to come out, but of course it's out of warranty.
I've got watch batteries if you need them.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Does this still require the expertise from the folks from Germany or Canada?
Canada. So Sunday through Thursday during the swim team season would be from 12 p.m., 12 noon to 8 p.m. And then Friday and Saturday would be from 12 noon. No, yeah, Friday and Saturday would be from 12 noon to 9 p.m. After the swim season's over, then it will be from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
So we just need to make a decision whether we want to change the hours.
That's all I'm asking is, can we adjust the hours?
And the additional money required to do that.
It would be a little bit. I mean, if y'all wanted, we can, start it later to cover that. That's entirely up to y'all.
I don't think we should start it later. I don't think we should go backwards.
Noon.
Oh yeah.
Noon's a
Oh yeah.
universal
Was there a
time.
lot? What'd you ask? So, did you get a lot of complaints as far as the?
I didn't get a lot of complaints, but that was the biggest complaint we had this year.
I mean, do you think we should change it, or should we just leave it alone?
Me personally, I like to swim in the evening. After the sun's gone down, while it's still cool. So I think that extra hour on the weekends, the pool's really going to get a lot of more usage that way.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth the cost? That's the question. If we have a party, so that would mean that parties can be scheduled Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. On Friday and Saturday, they couldn't be able to schedule a party because they don't have enough time before the park closes. So parties are private parties. They contract with Aquatica to provide the lifeguards. That's strictly their pricing, and then they pay a fee to the city for their parties. Let's see if it's on here.
And how often do they have pool parties?
I couldn't answer that question. I would say probably last year, my guess would be somewhere around 10 to 12.
We have quite a few, and there are people that would like to use the pool more for parties. But we get quite a few. We've even had people asking already to book parties. So it's been an unusual year as far as people wanted to go ahead and to book early for the Voight. We even have bookings for 2020 for the Voight Center right now. And people are waiting for us to open the pool gates as it were, so they can start booking parties also.
So do we charge for pool parties?
Yeah, it's $100 an hour with minimum 2 hours for residents, $200 an hour, minimum 2 hours for non-residents.
And it's in your packets also.
So maybe the additional use would offset the cost of the additional hours?
Yeah, but Aquatica's paying that independently. They're paying the pool party's paying Aquatica.
That's paid to the city, and then they have to contract with Aquatica to provide their own lifeguards, because the city doesn't do anything with the lifeguards then. That's off our staff.
Sure.
I just want to thank Holly McBrainer for doing such a wonderful, wonderful job with the homeowners. And, with the wine club, I went on a bus tour because I had been to California Wines, but never to Texas Wines. It was incredible. There were 35 people that showed up. Nobody got out of hand. Nobody had too much alcohol. The first stop we went to, they had food for us, and they give you a little bit of wine, and it was absolutely wonderful. And that gets people out, and you get to meet your neighbors, and I met really neat people there. And they have the parties at the Voight Center. $25 to join, that's a bargain for the year.
Yeah, I sure agree.
So what are we looking? So we were looking at an extra $2,000. Is that right? To have it open an hour later on those weekend nights. 1,600.
Yeah.
Seems like a bargain.
It does. It's just a matter of if we want to have less people having pool parties. If the pool parties are that popular, although that's not that.
They usually book during the week, I will tell you.
Oh, they do?
Parties, yeah. So I don't think it's going to hurt your pool party business.
Well, I'm okay with it being open another hour on the weekends.
I think we can afford it.
Yeah, I think we can afford it. We're making money off the pool.
And Jeff.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all the rest of the prices on here are the same, right? They didn't change?
I didn't ask that change any of the pricing. Of course, that's the other is there's so many people say, well, we should have the pool for free, but that just doesn't work.
No, that's not going to work.
So I didn't even consider that. And just so y'all know, just a little more information, I did wristbands last year, but we started in the middle of the season. This year, we're going to do wristbands only. We're not going to have the cards. I think it works so much better. The lifeguards, it's easier on the lifeguards. They don't have to focus on trying to write down things on a list. If you've got a wristband, you go in. If you don't have a wristband, then you have to pay a fee. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And if they lose them?
And there's a fee to get a new one.
Yeah.
Because Janice will be getting calls when they lose them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it worked out much better.
So I think it worked out fantastic. And we started in the middle of the season. This year, we're going to start at the beginning of the season with wristbands. New color, new wristbands, so nobody can use last year's, and boom, we just move forward.
So do y'all want to approve it to do it an hour later? Okay, well, shall I make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will make a motion that we have the pool open till 9 o'clock on the hours that Kelly discussed.
On Friday and Saturdays.
Friday and Saturdays.
And leave the pricing the same.
And leave the pricing the same.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I second, yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. And, before we go into executive session, I wanted to, yes, pardon? All right, please.
The gardens. When we were voting and building up on the Voight Center, we were looking at the mortgage that we were going to have on that, and we had an accelerated repayment schedule on that mortgage. Can you address next meeting where we are on that? If we are ahead of the debt, because we're anticipating a lot more income when we were building it. So, we could knock off a couple of years and add a lot of money to it. As far as sewer billing for sewers from SAWS, those in the gardens, we have a line item that we pay that sewer. And actually, that guy sitting right there said that we need to pay our fair share. And so it was voted upon. So that's where we are on that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Jeff, is that something that's possible to look at the bond payment schedule and pace the venue tax receipt rate against the bond schedule to see if that's possible?
Did you want it against the Voight's revenue?
The venue bond?
The schedule. Are we on schedule?
Okay. No, I'll take a look at that and see exactly what it is. It's on a CD, and I have a computer that uses CD, so I'll be able to look at it. And I will tell you exactly where we stand, exactly what's left on the bond issue. Okay?
Before we go into executive session, I was going to say, I think, Weege, you handed me a postcard, and I don't know if it was... It looks like
They handed it to me.
Okay. It's like a Facebook shot
I
of
just
me.
want to give you a chance to defend yourself.
All right, thanks. It has circled on it that I work at Billboard Solutions, Inc., which is correct. And it's the same place I've worked before I ran for council the first time and the second time and as mayor. And been there for many years. And like I was saying earlier, it's a reason I'm recusing myself from being a part of the vote on the billboard issue. I would say I may have any meetings that we've had with billboard vendors, I've included council members on any of them, and Mike Howe has been with me on several. And I would like to say Holly has a wealth of experience in the billboard industry as well. When I joined council, she was on the council as well, and I think it may have proved helpful in trying to realize the generosity of Bert and Elaine Thompson with their efforts to convert the billboard on their property that's an existing sign for the benefit of the residents of Hollywood Park. But it's all correct. And I was the Margarita Man for many years, too.
I remember.
Yes.
You see those trucks in your driveway.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. And
And you've never made a secret. You've never made a secret of working for a billboard company.
no. And we're going to break into executive session. The city council will convene in a closed section. A session is authorized by section 551.0712 of the Texas Government Code to consult with its attorney on matters in which the duty of the attorney to the city council under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Open Meetings Act, specifically new digital billboards, wire transfer banking and procedural options. And we don't have any other actionable items following it, but y'all are welcome to stay if you choose. All right? Thank you all for coming.
Mayor, will billboards be a discussion at the executive session?
Yes, it's stated in there. We have a legal issue and an ordinance issue that are that require them to be discussed in executive session per protocol. And
How long do you anticipate it would take?
I'm gonna somewhere between 12 minutes and an hour and a half. I think it'll be pretty short. I think it'll be pretty short.
Well, I mean, do we wait? I didn't know.
We don't. There's no actionable item following it. We're not coming out to vote on anything. We're done when we're done with the meeting.
Well, maybe you can find a way to get the money somewhere else.
Sure.
Instead of the billboard.
If anyone has an idea, we are welcome and open to it.
Call me.
And the time is
I'll give you some
8:04 p.m. Pardon?
Call me. I'll give you some ideas.
Thank you.
You
Thank
bet.
you, Weege.
You bet.
I appreciate
If you
it.
don't call me, people like
It is now 8:52, and our executive session is adjourned. Thank you, and have a pleasant evening. I'd like to adjourn the regular meeting as well. Thank you at all at 8:53. Thank you, and good night. Thank you. Mr. Protocol. Okay, I'll follow protocol. Who wants a postcard? Who wants a postcard?